greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Yes, hello. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Red Pill Hardcore TV show. As always, I'm your host, V. And today, well, every day is a special day, especially when you're an activist. And I like to think all my episodes are special, but this is a very special episode because I get to touch on the issues of what's going on with my Native American family. And I get to do that all the time. And I've been wanting to do this, especially before Thanksgiving, so we can let Whitey understand what's going on and how we feel about things that's going on right now. So I have with me Justin Keezer. He and his wonderful wife have both been guests on my radio show just right before I got the TV show. So Justin, you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, tell us what's going on, brother.
Ani buju on Bobby Benes indigenous cause my ingan into them. Gawa Bobby Ganaka Gandushabak Nisha Gamal Genka Bedakos. My name is Justin Keezer. I'm from White Earth, Minnesota, and northern part of Minnesota from the White Earth Indian Reservation, a small village by the name of Natawash. Up here, we've been actively fighting a couple different corporations, actively fighting a polymet mine that's been proposed in the Bonji Water Canoe area in Minnesota, and which actually just got approval. And Line 3 pipeline, Enbridge Line 3 pipeline, a Canadian-owned pipeline that they're trying to reroute and repair an old line that they never really properly consulted our tribes on here in Minnesota. And there's a lot of things that are coming out of it. So, I mean, it's a lot of interesting things going on here with this now.
Well, and this is all part of Standing Rock, of course. This is that whole ordeal, right?
Well, it got a real big spotlight when the Standing Rock standoff occurred, when they were making their stand against that pipeline over there, the Dakota Access, and it brought a lot of that to the attention of the not only the American public but to the world at large. That there's actually people here that are in opposition to these pipelines and this infrastructure that's being pushed through our traditional lands here. We have a pretty big treaty area here in Minnesota, and it goes from Minnesota, and in our reality, we retain what they call usufructuary rights all the way from here to the East Coast. And in fighting this pipeline, we discovered that there's been different corporate deals that they've been making with not only Enbridge, but with like Monsanto, Monsanto Bayer, Syngenta, American Crystal Sugar, 3M, Polymet. And there's been a lot of different things that they've been trying to do, corporate maneuvering, to bypass laws that have been established in that deal specifically with our treaties, these treaties that we have between nations, between our tribal nation, or our indigenous nation here in the United States and the United States government, and how they've manipulated that through different corporate actions and resolutions and business deals to undermine our rights here.
Well, and I want to actually touch on something. I want to bring something to the light here. I've actually been having a lot of plans, legal stuff going on to have, my other brothers, Black Panthers, and everyone heard in the world courts, the UN courts, and whatnot. And also at the same time, I was going to be consulting with a lot of the real actors, the real leaders of the Native American tribes. Go in and talk to the people at the UN. Next thing you know, almost even like the next day, oh, the United States is pulling out of the UN's Human Rights Council, and we're no longer going to be a part of it because they're the real criminals here. They're the ones doing all the atrocities against human rights. We as Americans, we're going to be the leaders in human rights. And I thought to myself, what a load of crap. What do you think about that?
I think that for 500 years we've been actively in opposition to a lot of the things that since the settlers got here, a lot of the things that they've been doing, and in reality, since 1776, we've been in opposition to the policies and procedures of this United States government. They never really recognize or anything else the treaties that we have, and like people have to think about when was the state of Minnesota, when did they come into being, and that wasn't until after our treaties were signed, because without our treaties, the actuality, the state of Minnesota, state of Wisconsin, any state out there would not be able to be created without these treaties that we have, and they've continuously, stomped on them treaties and violated our rights, and so much to the point that their corporate greed has led them down this road that's really put them in a stickler right now, and a lot of people are seeing how badly our government, not only at a tribal level, but at a world level, at a national level, and even at a world level, is being manipulated by these corporations trying to push this infrastructure for this pipelines, whether it's mines or whether it's the farm chemicals, these big corporate farm stuff, that they have. And then, it's so much so that they've tried to actually dissolve our tribes on paper and reduce us to nothing more than a race. They say, oh, you're just Indian, you're just an American Indian, and to try to underline and usurp our rights here, And what we're doing is we reached a point where right now in White Earth, the reservation that I'm from is part of a conglomerate of reservations in Minnesota that totally comprise what they call a Minnesota Chippewa tribe. It's 6 different reservations that work together as one big government, and they're seeing how they manipulated that, and how in 1996 the United States government had rescinded our tribal corporate charter. So in essence, what they did is they took away our United States citizenship, and they reverted us back to the status of treaty Indians again. And then they kept making these business deals, and they created these different corporations like White Earth Nation Incorporated, Leech Lake Incorporated, Mille Lacs Incorporated, and actually started pushing these business deals with businesses like Enbridge, and Leech Lake, Fond du Lac Band in Duluth, Minnesota, over by Duluth, Minnesota. They actually signed a $256 million deal with Enbridge, which is in a direct violation of all the rest of the tribe's treaty rights, our usufructuary rights. So we've reached kind of a breaking point here, where we're going through constitutional reform because they dissolved our corporate charter. It more or less took out that constitution that was recognized by the government. Now we have to create a new document, a new constitution. You see, they tried to come in and manipulate that, but the government said that because of different safeguards that were placed within that corporate charter and that constitution of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, It protected our rights as it pertains to that treaty. And now the United States is scared. And that's why they pulled out of all of that stuff, because they realized that they made a mistake. And ultimately what it's gonna lead to, it's gonna lead to the downfall of Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump is highly invested in this Enbridge pipeline, and even when they passed it back in 2017, he passed what they call Line 67, which is a trunk that feeds into Line 3. The Line 3 comes from the Bakken in North Dakota, and then they have a line that comes down from the Alberta tar sands and ties into that line. Trump violated our treaty when he signed that business deal, that executive order passing Line 67. And in passing that Line 67, it reroutes that pipeline, and it comes within 3/4 of a mile of our wild rice beds here in Minnesota. Between our reservations, we provide, you know, most of the wild rice in the world. You know, a lot of it comes from here. You know, a lot of it is hand harvested, local produced, organic food. You know, and you kind of know the real difference between real wild rice and the GMO, that Monsanto GMO rice or whatever it is, that NorCal rice that they got. But now they have these organizations trying to step in and write our constitutions for us. They're called Native Nation Institute, and they're out of Arizona. If you look up Native Nation Institute, they used to be Native Nation Builders, Native Nation Rebuilders. They always end up changing their name so that you can't follow what they're doing, you know. And if you look at people that have gone to them programs, it's a who's who of tribal chairmen in the United States that have sold out their, you know, to these different corporations and signed these business deals, these backdoor business deals, in our reality violating all of their people's rights. And now we have a way to fight it here in Minnesota. So what we need to do is we need to get our word out there. You know, we started Camp Red Power Initiative as a way of empowering our people, and we're working with locals. We're going through right now with what they call constitutional reform, and we went to a meeting last night, and the way that it's looking real positive, that there's going to be some real change coming for not only White Earth but the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. And we're hoping that people see that this is actually the opportunity for the rebirth of a nation, where they have to recognize these treaties as nation to nation, and it opens up. Why they're scared of it is it opens them up because of all them corporate deals they did. They violated our treaties. Now we have a right to take them to court and sue these companies, these big multi-billion-dollar corporations, and start getting some of that money back for this pipeline that's been in since 1968 and leaking all over the place and leaking into our groundwater. Now we have that power and that option to take that away from them tribal councils, these IRA, these Indian Reorganization Act governments, and put it back in the hands of the people. You know, so I mean, and actually change how we view citizenship, how we do a lot of these different things. You know, I mean, there's I understand the right to the quest to protect our identity as Anishinaabe, but there's also that, you know, we see these things going on like in Honduras, where these people are being, you know, they're refugees coming to the United States, and they're painting them out to be some kind of monster. In our reality, they're fleeing from a problem that the United States created when they decided to go in and remove that democratic Honduran government and instill a military dictatorship on those people. You know, and people don't realize it was the United States that actually helped to do that. And now we're seeing this blowback 10 years later, and then people are coming here and they need asylum. They need refuge from you know, and we as indigenous nations in the United States need to start stepping up our game and start seeing it that we are at a world stage, and quit subjugating ourselves to that state rule or that United States government rule, and start saying, hey, we have the opportunity and the ability to be able to help some people. Why don't we try to help some people? You know, and across the board, you know, I mean, we produce enough food. What we're pushing for is food sovereignty, growing our own food. You know, I mean, to actually trying to, you know, pushing and saying we want to legalize hemp, the industrial hemp, because we recognize the green applications in the industrial possibilities of actually having a, it would give us a gross national product as a people. I mean, you have to have that. In today's world, people have to understand we're not going to be able to go back to 500 years ago and actually, and it's a nice gesture, and that's what we do. We live off the land, but we also have to acknowledge that there's that bigger stage, that world stage, and that what happens here is going to affect that. Because when Donald Trump signed that executive order, it put him under the barrel. He could be impeached for that, because that's overstepping his authority as a president of the United States. That takes an act of Congress to be able to pass that pipeline and go through our treaty territory. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff.
Well, the thing is, Donald Trump is invested in this pipeline, even though he has stepped down from his businesses. He still has his sons in place to run those businesses, in which he is still going to profit from. Now, I want to say, first, they have to stop the black man from picking cotton, and oh no, now hemp is here and is gonna take over the industry. What are they gonna do? But and another point that you brought up, you're bringing up all these great points. This Honduran government, democracy, the United States. The U.S. militaries around the world spreading democracy. Yeah, that's a load of crap. That's a load of crap. People, watch a documentary called Economic Hitman. And that should open your eyes about what's going on there. There is no democracy unless it's owned by the United States and where it's benefiting the direct elite of the United States. And those elites were owned by the Rothschilds and whoever in Europe. So, I want to ask you something. What happened with you being banned from these meetings? Because I know you got your voice up and going. And wasn't there a sheriff that banned you from these meetings? Because that is so. Go ahead.
Actually, it's our new Secretary of Treasury here for our tribe. He was somebody that had went over and was overseas. He was a military guy. He actually worked for the Fluor Corporation, FLUOR. And if people aren't familiar with Fluor, what Fluor was being investigated for human trafficking that was going on in Afghanistan during the war over there, during all of their stuff after 9/11. And this guy. He came home and he ended up, he worked as a strategic planner for our former tribal chairwoman. And actually, she was the one that was trying to get all of this stuff done to more or less screw us. Because a long time ago, they created these accounts for us. And the Cobel Salazar, they ended up paying out a bunch of these accounts. They said that, we owe them money, And the United States government had this land. It's called White Earth Land Settlement Act and the Nelson Timber Sale Act, and it all goes back to the early 1900s when they first came in and started making all of these deals for the land and the resources and the timber and stuff like that. And then we see it all start coming and playing out 100 years later. People got to realize these companies think in terms of 100 years. They think in terms of legacies of, they don't just have a 7-year business plan. They have a 100-year business plan, and it's hard to project that, but they know that by manipulating and controlling the way they do, that's the whole reason for the MK Ultra, the whole reason for the government trying to manipulate people and create these programs of not only through your television, but everything else, where they manipulate people's perception on what's actually going on, and the easiest way to do that is to instill that fear, Well, this guy come back here and he knows this. This guy knows this stuff. So he played on that because he's a military trained guy, What he didn't like is that I called him out. As soon as he got in the office, he came in and he stole my canoe. Oh, my banner's fallen. That's Red Power, I wanted to give them a shout out. They're up there in Canada right now, shutting down Line 3. They're called the Great Plains Resistance. Look them up on Facebook. They're doing a lot of blockades and stuff up there. They're trying to stop this pipeline. Well, anyway, Alan Roy, because he doesn't want me coming into these meetings and speaking in front of like the tribal executive committee and stuff, got a restraining order on me after he had my canoe stolen, got me kicked off of some land and stuff, trying to ban me from these meetings so that I don't bring up the fact that they dissolved their corporate charter, that in all reality, they've been running under an illusion since 1996. You see, our RBC is called our Reservation Business Committee. They're the more or less like the corporate board of our reservation. When you actually look at how the documents are written and stuff, you know, you have your corporation and it's set up like any other corporation. It has your signers or whatever. That's us, the people. That's where you get and the way they see it is we're shared, you know. And you have your tribal chairman and your secretary treasurer and 3 district reps. That's all it is that controls this whole deal for our reservation. And then you have 12 of these people that are making 12 people making these decisions for all of these Native Americans in Minnesota. They're using that corporate structure, and when they dissolved that business committee is no longer existent. And what they did is they created a different corporation, a shell corporation that they're funneling government money through because they owe us this money, and people don't realize that because of our treaties, they owe us education, health care, they owe us 40 acres and a horse. You know what I mean? It's written into them treaties. And unless you know your treaties, you don't know what all they're required to give you. You know, and they try to make it sound like oh, we're giving you that. No, you give us your surplus of food because we whooped your ass in 1812, and every time that, you know, all the way up to Sugar Point, people can look up the Battle of Sugar Point in Minnesota. Last time the United States cavalry tried to come and mess with our people, and we ran them off. You know, we defeated their military time and time again. And what they did is they tried to come in and undermine our treaties with this corporate stuff. But now they're realizing that what they did in 2012 when they call it the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Fund, Congress actually started backpedaling and saying, you have to have a referendum, you have to have a vote of the people, because that was written in there that they needed 30% of the people in the reservation, like the whole population, to vote on it and to be able to approve it, to even get it to see the floor. And then you had to have 2/3 of a vote for it to pass. Then it goes to Congress. Then they vote on it, and then we have to have negotiations on that. And they actually make an amendment to that treaty that fixes that. But that's why they don't want me speaking, is because once I say it, it becomes a matter of public record. They have to investigate it. See, why they're after Trump's finances so hard is because if they can prove that tie to Enbridge with that Line 67, I mean, I have video where they say that he's invested in Enbridge. Who does Enbridge buy that steel from for that pipeline? They're buying that steel from the Russians. Who owns that oil? You know, Enbridge is a shipping company. They're more or less just owning the pipeline. Who owns that oil that's flowing through that pipeline? Koch brothers. Koch brothers own that oil, and now 95% of that oil is going to China. And you start seeing that why they want to get into Trump's financials, why they want to see his tax returns, is because if they could prove this, then they could prove that he has vested interest in trying to push this pipeline, and that'll put a halt to it until they investigate it. When they had their PUC meetings, they had these Public Utility Commission meetings here, and they had the meetings on Line 3, and I brought that up in a meeting. I said, you know, do you like what happened in Standing Rock? Because you're gonna have that happen here because we have rights. And I brought all of this stuff up in that meeting. And what people don't realize is when you're given that and they got that stenographer there that's taking that, that's a court record. That's a court document. So now the Department of Justice is holding on to this little court record that says, hey, we have to investigate this because this guy has treaty rights. In 1924, they passed a deal that says if they ever inhibit me by taking my canoe or taking my car or anything like that, that they more or less revoked my United States citizenship and they made me a treaty Indian again. And I do not answer to the authority of that government. And they've been trying to give me a littering ticket. Trying to issue warrants for me for a littering ticket, and they realize that their little court doesn't actually have the power to arrest me because I'm a sovereign individual, and that their state laws do not apply to me. We have cases that prove that. There's the Stone decision in Minnesota. His name was Josh Stone, and there's a bunch of people on there that beat this case. I said that the states in actuality, the states in the United States, any of the 50 states, do not have the authority to impose their state laws on tribal citizens on reservations. And people have to start waking up to these facts.
Now, and I, quite honest with you, I think the whole pipeline, all the stuff it's big business, it's big money. But I really think that is a facade. The big goal here, to me, is to take your sovereignty from you. In my opinion. What do you think?
I think that in our reality, a lot of the people in the United States don't realize how under the thumb of this government they are, and that they're actually, in all actuality, they're paying into their own demise, more or less, because of our treaties. We're actually some of the last truly free people in the world, where I could actually go out in the brush and I could just subside, go out with my canoe. I don't need the government. I can grow my garden. I can harvest my rice. I can shoot my deer. They don't have a right to infringe on me doing that. And that's what they don't like, is because by doing that, I'm not actually getting that 9-to-5 job and paying into their system and becoming a little slave to that, and becoming a slave to their little capitalist system where I have to buy a TV, then I have to buy shoes, then I have to have the nicest car, and I have to have and when you get back to that very basic simplicity of life, and you're actually out in the woods and you're taking part in it, and you're actually, that's true spirituality to me, but that removes a lot of that. That removes that power they have over you. And they don't like that, because they had that in our reality, they have no power over you. And that's what they don't like. In our reality, that's what they don't like, is they have no power over us as individuals. And that's what it is. The polymet mine, the pipeline, the Monsanto, them poisoning us. Renee is in my eyes, one of the leading experts in Minnesota on Monsanto, and how all these farm chemicals are actually being used as a means of warfare on our people. And over the past 50 years, how they've been poisoning us, with these farm chemicals, because we're facing a 95% cancer rate. They're really depleting our numbers up here, and they think that they're just thinking, why won't they die? And because in all reality, them treaties do make us, and they're trying to deflect from this Constitution stuff, and they're trying to downplay it and say, oh, it's not that important, we're just going to put the old one in. No, they rescinded our corporate charter. They took away our citizenship. Now they have to create new documents. So this is a blank slate for us. We could actually go and say, no, we're not going to agree to any of your state stuff, and we're going to take control back of how we could, we're doing things. We have to start incorporating our 7 grandfathers, because in our reality, we were told stories about this stuff happening hundreds of years ago, and it's all starting to play out. They call it prophecy, everything else, but it's kind of weird when all of these stories start playing out like this.
Renee Walker, your wife, is a wonderful, intelligent, equally intelligent and wise woman. I can't wait to have her on the show, because I want to ask her about this Monsanto Bayer takeover of the medical marijuana industry, because we can't have weed unless there's some corporation that owns it all, and the government can make all the money in the world on it, but we can't have it otherwise, right? So, it really infuriates me that a person cannot grow vegetables in their own yard. I'm going to get old school here. and say, I used to visit my grandmother in Miami, Florida. She had lemon and lime trees in the backyard. That's where I go for my vacation family. And I would climb those trees all day long. I would sleep in those trees, eating lemons and limes all day long. I would just sleep in those trees. One day when we were supposed to go and visit for a vacation, couldn't find out the government made her chop those trees down. It was in violation of some bull crap that didn't really exist. And it really infuriated me because, it was, faced with fines. And it's always about violence. The government is not a just government if you have to use violence. It's, okay, do what we say or we'll fine you. You don't pay those fines, we'll take your right. We'll take your freedom. And if you fight against that, we'll take your life. And that is an unjust government. If we have a government that puts a person's life at risk, it's not a real government. It's not democracy. It's not anything. We haven't. We don't have a real system of a just government. Everything comes down to money and violence. So I'm just very infuriated by hearing all this. I want you to be able to go and fishing. And I'd stop going fishing with my father because, I got to buy a fishing license for you. What? No, don't do that. Let's just go. No, I don't get caught by the park ranger. F the park ranger up his dumb, you know what, and let's go fishing. God gave us that water. God gave us that lake, not the government. And it really irritated me. I had to stop going fishing with my own father because I hate the bureaucracy, the control over what the government wants to use what doesn't belong to them, but want to charge us for it, to take away our sovereignty and our freedom and our right to be independent. So yeah, I'm sorry. I had you on the show so that you could rant. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, I see that too. We see that going on a lot here, and that's kind of what they did when they wrote me that littering ticket. Is I was actually out and I was what we call leech trapping here. Whether they use them for medicinal purposes, the medical leeches, or they use them for fishing bait here. We were out and I was actually trying to harvest leeches with my canoe and stuff. And they came up and they said that I was littering, and they stole my canoe and they took, they said, oh, you didn't pick up your traps. I said, well, you took my canoe. It's kind of wrote me this big ticket. And then they came in and clear cut the area. In all reality, what they were trying to do is force me off that land because somebody in our tribal government, I don't know who, but they had made some agreements for your own uranium core sample drilling. Because they found uranium deposits in Minnesota, and then they want to do core sample drills all over the place, and that's why they forced me out. And you bring up a really good point, us here, we're under this rule of a Public Law 280, they call it, and Public Law 280 was enacted in the 50s as a way to stop drug running in the Four Corners area of the United States, down in Arizona, New Mexico, because they had all these people coming through there, through them reservations down there, and they had no way to impose any kind of laws on them because it was considered Indian country, because that whole spot is just one big, huge reservation, So what they did is they came up with Public Law 280 that said, okay, we have the right to go in and arrest these people for felonies for drug running, and we can arrest them and take them off your reservation. And they said, okay, and they used that, manipulated that to be able to impose police forces on the tribal people, and they passed it and all this and that. But in all reality, they violated our rights because we were supposed to have what they call a quorum vote, a quorum of the people to be able to implement that. And in the late 80s, early 90s, they actually implemented a police force here, and that police force is actually state licensed officers. They're licensed through the counties of Minnesota counties. And they're state licensed officers, and they're imposing state laws on us. because we never actually had any vote on laws or anything like that, whether we wanted seatbelt laws or we had headlight laws or anything like that. No civil regulatory. So they don't have authority to stop us for civil regulatory offenses or anything like that, anything up to like a capital punishment or a murder. And they actually need a federal officer to come in and arrest a tribal member on a reservation, you know. And when they can impose these laws on you, then it's not a right. It's a privilege. You know, they take that right away from you. They take that right from you to be able to pick a lemon or to go out and catch a fish and put food on your table. Then they've taken that from being a right of actually providing for yourself and feeding yourself and turned it into a privilege to say, okay, you can do that, but you got to come by this permit from us that says you can do that on our property or our land. And it's like, who are they to say that's their property or land? That's there for everybody. That's there for all of us to use to be able to provide for us. Who are they to impose this on us when the creator is the one that provides all of this stuff for us, whether it's lemons or deer meat or fish or berries or the sugar bush. You know, we have rights to all of these resources that they don't like that. That's another reason that they're trying to wipe us out as indigenous people of the Americas. You know, all the way from Canada to South America, they're trying to wipe us out. Brazil got the president now that they're trying to go in and wipe out the rainforest. You know, that they have that Paris Climate Agreement, and they're, you know, if they don't change things in the next 10 years and start getting a regress on it, then we're going to reach a point of no return, and then we're just going to see the slow decline of our people until all of the people are wiped off the earth. You know, or they reach their Agenda 21, 2030 or whatever, you know, whatever comes first. You know, I mean, people got to see these 100-year plans, and these are sick plans that these corporations have. And it's all through these corporate resolutions and stuff. You know, if it's a resolution, it's not a law. People don't understand that a corporate resolution is not the same as a law. And if they pass a corporate resolution, it doesn't mean that that's a law. That's just a recommendation. You know, they don't understand that corporate, it has to be, that executive has to be separated from that, what do they call it? Executive, the legislative. We don't really have a legislative for the reservations here. And that's one of the problems that we're facing is the way is we're structured as a quasi-sovereign. We're dependent on that big government, United States government, because we don't have taxes and stuff. So unless we're all actually living off the land, providing for yourself, harvesting your rice, and selling your own resources, your own products, then you're more or less stuck with that bigger government giving you some kind of, you know, whether it's welfare or SNAP or MFIP or, you know, EBT, you know, whether they're giving you food stamps. You know, you're always relying on that bigger government to be able to trickle you money, to be able to provide for your people. In our reality, they are they're more or less, they have accounts just the same way that they have them in the Indian Act. You see it going on in Canada too with that Indian Act. They have these huge accounts that were set up by the British, the French, and the Spanish, and all these other different peoples that said, okay, if we come take your resources, we'll put this much money in your account for you, you know? And they had all of these different accounts set up for indigenous people here for a long time. And they say, who does the United States owe us trillions of dollars of debt to? They owe it to the indigenous people because it's our resources that they've been extracting and to be able to make their products, whether it's a cell phone or a car, and to be able to sell that at a bigger deal. But it all boils down to stripping you of the basic human rights. If they can take you from the basic human right, they can do whatever they want to you, you know. And that's when you are powerless, is when you can't even, you know, you're dependent on that system, you know.
Well, let me ask you, so what is planning for the future? Do we have some rallies, some meetings? What's going on that's gonna move us towards solutions?
What we're doing at our camp is empowering our people. We're working and saying, hey, what do you have to do? We have to move towards that greener future, which is start utilizing the solar, start utilizing the wind energy, start utilizing whatever alternate energy we have besides burning them fossil fuels, are turning to that nuclear. You know, we have huge nuclear, you know, them uranium mines up in Canada, and people don't talk about that. You know, that's kind of that hush hush. that they're doing this to these indigenous people, the Dene and the Cree and the Anishinaabe people up in Canada. They have these huge open pit uranium mines to provide for that nuclear power to do what? To boil water, to build these steam machines to be able to make electricity. Our reality is creating a nuclear reaction to boil water. I mean, come on. I mean, there's better ways to do things, whether it's wind energy, geothermal. We have to start moving in that direction and start realizing that we can make a lot of the same products or very similar products, sometimes better products, using plant cellulose, using, biodegradable materials, all of this other stuff. I think this year is a chance to really start pushing towards that. And that's by asserting our sovereignty and asserting this. And I'm hoping that it'll spread, that we'll be able to give these other tribal nations in the United States, if this ever happens to you or they dissolve your corporate charter, realize that that's actually doing you a favor, because you actually can come back with a brand new constitution, a brand new way of dealing with the United States government. And they're going to have to address that, and starting to realize that we're all going to have to come together and quit using these ways that they, that's their way to separate us, say, oh, that guy's Oriental, or that guy's black, or that guy's, this or that, oh, look at these Mexicans coming and they're going to invade our borders. There's always these reasons to divide us, and we have to start taking care of each other. Start saying, hey, we have more than enough to be able to feed the world, and it isn't, everybody ain't going to want to go live that traditional lifestyle. And you're going to have to understand that they're going to want to live in that city lifestyle too, but there's alternative ways to doing that besides using these oil, radioactive oil is doing nobody any good.
Well, I agree with you. Justin Keezer, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I'm going to also put a link in the show of his last, I don't want to call it a rant. It was just an epic call to arms. So
that call is still out there. They're still building that pipeline. It's coming January. They're supposed to start building, but we're rolling. I mean, there's people showing up, and we got them on the ropes, and we're hoping that this will work. Before they break ground in Minnesota on line 3, I'm hoping we can beat it.
People, your rights to grow your own food, your rights to go out fishing, all stuff is being trampled on. Why? Because you have not spoken out. Why? Because you've not declared to have your own sovereignty. You haven't matured as a real human being. You're all asleep because the government has closed your eyes. Now, they wish to do this to everyone. Here we have less sovereign people on the planet. Once they go, we're all doomed. It's time to wake up. It's time to take back what's ours as a people, as a multicolored people, as a nation, as a species, as brotherhood, sisterhood. And we need to do this thing. So, again, thank you for coming on the show, Justin. I'll have you back on soon, I know.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother. And there's a lot going on, and I understand, man. I'm just like, my mind is going because we have this constitution stuff going on. We're going to try to reestablish a corporate charter for the government, and we're actually going to start negotiating like how we're going to do this and what we're going to add to it. And it's important stuff going on.
Let's keep the public abreast to what's going on, because we don't want these people to be able to brush us underneath the rug and rewrite history. Okay? We want the facts. We want it straight from the source. So, yes, this has been another episode of the Redfield Hardcore TV show. I'm your host, V, and catch me next week.
I am V from the Red Pill Hardcore radio show and TV show. I'm here to tell you guys about my militia, the Red Pill Militia of Minnesota. The militia is there to protect the people of the United States from any enemy that may threaten our way of life, regardless of religion or political stance. We will unite the people as one to fight tyranny of any form from anywhere, including our own government. We will see the people free again. I hope you would like to join my militia. Please visit our Facebook page, The People's Red Pill Militia. Like, comment, let us know in general what you think. And if you want to be a volunteer, all you have to do is coordinate with our members. We're all honorary brothers of the militia because we all protect our freedoms, our constitutional rights, and the most important things that we have as American citizens. So please help me in protecting those rights and join my militia. Hello, I'm V from the Red Pill Hardcore TV show, and I'm here to deliver a message to you. I am standing up, and I think you guys should stand up too. What are we standing up for? Clean air. The New World governments have been spraying aluminum, strontium, barium, all kinds of nanoparticulates, salts, heavy metals, and we are losing our environment. We have trees with aluminum toxicity. Our wildlife is disappearing, one species at a time. We have weather warfare weaponry. If there is anything such as global warming, well, we have ionospheric heaters that's dramatically bombarding our atmosphere. All this damage can be done to the environment by these nanoparticulates being sprayed into the atmosphere. We know that it's causing respiratory issues. We know that it's causing autism. We know that it's causing Morgellons, the transhumanistic disease. What else is it doing? I think it may just be altering our minds. Watch my movie, and then you decide.
Groovy.